Before we begin, thank you very much to he's a thief, a criminal. He stole my suit. He's a menace to the entire city. I want that wall trolling arachnid prosecuted. For joining the Patreon campaign. I didn't know J. Jonah was a fan, but thank you very much for the support. I do appreciate it. Whew! That's a way to start a video, isn't it? Oh, man. Okay, so quick little reminder if you didn't see the video because it was a weird video. It was 25 minutes and I had to cut it down to 10 because my editing program glitched a little. But for shorthand, if you're going to TFCon Orlando, I'm doing a meetup over at Acme Superstore, big toy store in Orlando that is 30 minutes from the hotel venue. Very easy trip up I-4. So meet me there. It's going to be 2 p.m. on TFCon Friday. So enough time to get in, do a little browsing, get out before we have to go pick up our tickets. Should be a fun time. Just want to see how many will show up, frankly. Okay. Patreon request time. And the Patreon request today is focused on Beast Wars Neo. So the original request was either an overview, kind of a look back at Beast Wars Neo, or a look at my favorite Beast Wars Neo toy. To be honest, I don't have that many Beast Wars Neo toys. I got the reissue of Big Convoy. I kind of lost one of its mammoth feet. I don't know where the part got to. So I don't really have anything to review. So we're going to overview the series as a whole. And we are going to focus a whole lot on the toys and the decisions behind them because I think that's the more fascinating thing. Beast Wars Neo as an anime, I will admit, I haven't watched the entirety of it. I've watched bits and pieces. I've looked over like different character biographies. But for the most part, it's still a little bit alien to me. And from what I know, it's, I don't know, kind of like bog standard anime from what I've been told. Now, that's not to say that that's correct. It's not to say my opinion won't be different looking at it. But the reports I've had and the people who have told me about it have not made me like that eager to dive into the series. But it does do some interesting things. So we can give it credit for that. Okay, so for starters, the plotline does extend from Beast Wars 2. Beast Wars 2 dealt with, I don't know if I'm gonna even pronounce this correctly, but the spelling is Ankylosaurus energy. Ankylosaurus energy. Which in like literal translation is pronounced very differently, but I'm not even going to attempt that. Point being, it kind of went back to the roots of Transformers with a Find Energy storyline. The difference here is that in Beast Wars 2, this stuff was like Energon, where they fueled up on it. This stuff was mystical even. It would do random things. It could bring life to a new Transformer, or it could give an old Transformer a completely new body and full power upgrade. It was wild stuff. It was basically whatever the writers wanted to do with it. So for Beast Wars Neo, the finale of Beast Wars 2 saw the energy contained in capsules and scattered across the universe. Beast Wars Neo is all about tracking those capsules down. So it's essentially a continuation of the same plot, but with different characters. We're still dealing with the exact same stuff. Now, Beast Wars Neo did introduce a retcon for this energy source that kind of makes it pretty important and really puts a different light on it. And that is the fact that it is the leftover energy of Unicron. So gathering it up actually allows Unicron to return, taking the body of Galvatron from the previous Transformers series as his new form. It's always felt kind of cheap, right? Always kind of felt cheap that they just reused a different animation model just to, instead of coming up with a new one for Unicron. They didn't even like recolor him orange, which actually would have looked really cool. Point being, we had Galvatron back as a villain with Unicron in control. And it's a villain that actually posed a threat to both Cybertron and Destron alike. So that's a little bit interesting. It's something that Beast Wars never really did. So it's a nice thing to introduce like a third faction that's dangerous to everybody. Also, this was done specifically because it was the 15th anniversary of the franchise, so they wanted to throw a flashback in there. So we got Unicron. And it's an interesting choice in that it kind of ties Beast Wars Neo to G1 fiction, which would mean that 2 and Neo took place simultaneously with Beast Wars. That the timeline on there has always been a little bit fishy and suspect, but for the most part, it does put us in something of a timeline with this franchise. So Unicron ends up being the big bad in a way that we had never dealt with Unicron before. He had never been character sized or had a proper voice that could normally just banter with other characters. So it actually got a chance to show Unicron as a full character rather than just a giant looming menace who is more equated to a natural disaster than a transformer. And I loved what they did for his minions. They used the Fusors, which I thought was a genius move, because the freakish nature of them actually does fit the chaotic energy of Unicron really, really well. And coming up with some nice redecos. Of course, Elfora is way more desired than Torka, not only because, frankly, I think the colors are a lot nicer, but also because, of course, there's no gold plastic. It is a version of the toy that will actually survive. So this was actually really smart. I love the idea. Like, the Beast Wars 2 and Neo, the task of those was to basically reuse toys that Hasbro made for Beast Wars that never came out in Japan. So using the Fusors in this way was actually pretty brilliant. It works them in a very original and different way. But that's the main villain of the whole franchise. Let's take a look at our leaders. So we start with Big Convoy, who is a far more stern and aggressive Convoy than we had seen in the past. He is far more military-minded. Now, keep in mind, Transformers in Japan are military-minded. You know, Optimus Prime is not leader of the Autobots. He's the great commander or grand commander. Like it's a far more like military presence. There's a lot more yes sirs and all that. It's a lot more stern. It's a lot more militaristic, and Big Convoy kind of represents a drill sergeant state of mind. The whole reason he is picked to actually lead this cast of Cybertrons is because they're fresh out of the military academy and he needs to whip them into shape. And we kind of have a flip in roles here, whereas this take on Convoy is far more militaristic and far more stern. It means he kind of learns about teamwork and friendship as things go along rather than the other way around. So his team is teaching him to kind of mellow out and kind of like cool down to like a more normal status for a Convoy. Good call. That's a good character decision. It lets them tell a different story with a Convoy than they had previously. And then we had Magmatron, who does have some of the scheming deviousness of the Beast Wars Megatron and the power hungry and after control of all Predacons, Destrons, whichever your fiction of choice is. The difference is he commands far more respect from his soldiers, who are far more loyal out of choice rather than Megatron, who does it through fear and manipulation. This one is actually more well-rounded as a leader. He has more concern over his troops. He has more concern over the overall of Transformers as well. It's why it's how the ending of the show came about, because spoiler alert for this show that you really should have watched by now if you had interest in it. It kind of ends with everyone just kind of getting along to rebuild Cybertron, or rebuild in general, I should say. It's different. It's different. Like, he actually does like, he is actually more like about as even leveled as a leader in the Destrons ever was. So he has redeeming factors to him, which is interesting. Now, I really feel like in Beast Wars Neo, it's the Destrons that shine, because the Destrons got to basically take the theme of the Beast Wars Predacons and push it farther. Everyone on the Predacon side of things, Destron side of things, is a dinosaur or an ancient creature akin to the dinosaurs. So they all kind of carry a theme to them. This meant my favorite dinosaur of them all, an Ankylosaurus, finally got a transformer with bazooka. It was just a basic class figure, and it's an incredibly problematic figure. If this toy is not 100% in the right orientation when you try to link the two halves of the beast mode shell together, it will not go together. It's a very frustrating toy. And I really wish, like, that's why I'm like so happy that Scar became a thing in this year. So I have an Ankylosaurus transformer that actually behaves. Man, we need another run of Beast Wars so this guy can get another chance. I mean, it's so far down the list, but can I at least get like a deluxe class bazooka that actually has a sensible transformation? Maybe not. Maybe just an Ankylosaurus that doesn't rely so much on shell. How about that? How about that? But no, they got to do dinosaurs, and once we got to the deluxe scale, the dinosaurs got to do some interesting things. So they actually came up with a gimmick mode for most of the deluxe dinos, and that was a dead mode. Now, keep in mind, when the Jurassic Park toy line was so popular, the big gimmick to them was the battle damage pieces that you could reveal. I kind of feel like this is inspired by it, so they can play dead. Guile Dart here not only can lay flat on his belly, but the sides open up to reveal his ribs and exposed muscle tissue. The tail can separate off to do the same, and his eyes can roll into the back of his head and his tongue can hang out. And this is a full mode. You're literally supposed to pretend he's dead. Let's look at Saberback, and we'll look at the exact same thing. He can lay flat out as if he was dead, except he's got a flower growing out of his back. That's it's super clever. It's a neat little weird gimmick for a third mode. But considering what was popular at the time, I don't think that was too far off the mark. It actually is a really clever way of working this gimmick. And it led to some fun oddities in these toys. It's not to say all of them had the dead mode. Not everyone conformed to that. But we got some other ones later on that were interesting. Arcadis was my favorite because he was actually an Archaeopteryx, and a cool looking one at that. This is such a clever way of incorporating some variety into the beast modes of this line without breaking from the ancient animal motif. So aside from just like a really unique look, I love like this like Western poncho look he's got with his wings. It's way more interesting than just the wings being hanging off of his back. He had a quick draw gimmick, so he kind of went with a Western motif, and not the only one in this line that went with a Western motif, by the way. He was always my favorite. When I got him as part of the Beast Machines toy line, he was the one I never let go of. Always really liked him. So what did the Cybertron side of things do? Well, they went weird. Whereas I feel like a lot of the Destrons showed some real strength and creativity with their figures, the Cybertrons got a little bit odd. So we take a look at things like Long Rack here. And Long Rack's something of a legendary toy at this point, but let's be honest here. At what point does a giraffe come in handy during a military operation? Okay, sure, you've got higher vantage point and viewpoint, but what soldier says, I want my head to be attached to this very long, bright yellow, vulnerable thing? It's a weird choice, and it's a choice made because they hadn't done a giraffe before. So obviously they wanted to do a giraffe. Okay, check the boxes. We didn't want to repeat what happened in Beast Wars and Beast Wars 2, granted. Okay, fair enough. We're going to do a giraffe. And the Maximals, or Cybertrons in this, always had a weird weapon mode. You can see here where it's just kind of like this launching clamp thing on Long Rack. Most of these were trash. Most of the third modes on these were absolute garbage. It was like a half-transformed mode where it just so happened that their weapon was exposed. But they used it in the show, too. Makes it even weirder. There's some infamous toys in this arrangement, by the way. How about Mock Kick? So, Mock Kick shows two problems with this line. Number one, first off, look at the bottom right. That's the weapon mode. That's the weapon mode. That's not a weapon mode. That's not a weapon mode. That looks like the winner of the the Kentucky Derby got blown up. That's not a mode. That's not a mode. It's not a mode. Mach Kick is infamous because it is notably one of the most frustrating transformers to transform. It's way overcomplicated and way over-engineered, which is weird for something that relies so much on shells and just animal kibble hanging off of him. And that was something that kind of ran through a lot of the Cybertrons. A lot of the previous Beast Wars engineering kind of gave way to just creating beast shells that hung off of the robot modes. Here's Break, one of the most infamous shell formers of all time. Break can have his entire beast mode removed from his body and assemble a fully formed penguin. So, yeah, a little odd. And really, like, to me, didn't make for a great toy. Okay, fine, you got a penguin transformer in there, but what are you gonna do? Why did you not even attempt to make that penguin turn into a robot? It's I don't know. It just always felt lazy. It always felt lazy, and it just didn't make the toys nearly as fun as some of the previous ones. And it's not just purely a Cybertron thing. The Destrons did it too with Dead End. Literally, the only part of his robot mode exposed is that little piece that hangs off his chest, and that's literally it. And him, in a way, is even worse because his shell doesn't break up and try to form different parts of his body, different, armor around his body. It's literally just hanging off of his shoulders. It's a weird look. It's a really weird look. And there's a lot of figures in this line that relied way too much on shell. Way too much. Not to say that all of the Cybertrons were disappointing, though. Here comes our second Western gimmick, Karada. I love Karada. I love that they're the engineering masterpiece that is trying to get a snake transformer to actually work. Weapon mode, again, is trash, but hey, they made a snake work. And I actually really like it. He's got a bit of a cowboy hat thing going on with his helmet shape. He also has kind of a Western poncho, kind of a desperado look. The whip helps that too. Yeah, I really, really dig this one. I think he's one of the few non-Beast Wars characters that I keep out on my Beast Wars shelf right now. But it does break the mold for the Cybertrons, doesn't it? So, like, Beast Wars established very firm lines when it came to the beast modes. If you were a Maximal, you were a mammal, an avian, or an aquatic creature. If you were a Predacon, then you were a dinosaur, a bug, or a crustacean in some random cases, or you were a lizard or a reptile of some sort. So you had hard divisions across the animal kingdom. This line, in favor of just doing whatever animal hadn't been done before, threw all those rules out the window and just did kind of whatever they wanted to. That includes Rockbuster here, who was originally Razor Claw in America, released for Beast Wars Neo, and now he's a Maximal. It's literally the only thing they changed, is his faction. The rest of the toy is identical to the US release. And then, yeah, there are weird ones as well. We got a Tanuki. Of course we got a Tanuki in this line. Why wouldn't we? It's Heinrad, by the way, whose whole gimmick is time. As you can see, he has a built-in clock that is a working alarm clock. Fun. But yeah, of course, Beast Wars, targeted to an American audience, isn't going to do a Tanuki. But we've gone through all these toys. We haven't talked about the leaders. All right, so let's go in. So, yeah, Big Convoy himself has probably one of the most passable weapon modes because it's literally just deploying his cannon in beast mode. And yeah, the Mammoth beast mode does look really, really cool. I do like how it looks. It's why I got the Encore. It also has the novelty of being the very first Convoy toy with a removable matrix. So that was a kind of a noteworthy thing and made him a little bit cooler. He is another one that you can remove the shell and almost completely form his beast mode from it. So he also has a lot of shell to him. He wears it better than some of them do, I will admit that. And they use the shell for actual detail, whether it's, like just the giant horn sticking out the side, which is kind of cool, but also a missile rack that's exposed. At least it's done a little bit better. And then again, I feel like the Destrons in the toy line just got the better side of the coin toss, because Magmatron is incredibly ambitious and really unique. 3 dinos that combine into one robot mode, or a combined Chimera-esque mode. This was a super cool toy. This is a super cool toy and incredibly ambitious. There's a lot of engineering hoops to jump through in order to make this work. And it does. I mean, it does require a bunch of chunks coming off and forming shields, which I hate that. But outside of that, it's just an incredibly cool trick to do with a Transformer. You know? It's kind of like the Duocons finally got their heyday or something. But that, in general, is how Beast Wars Neo wraps up. The show itself did a few interesting things while still kind of being typical 90s, you know, weekly TV anime. But the toy line did a lot of strange things, let's be honest. The toy line was strange. In some ways very focused, in some ways all over the place. But, you know, that's what makes it stand out, I guess. I enjoy it just for how many dinosaur toys we got out of it. That was fun. And the occasional oddball that makes me really happy, like Harada or Arcadis. Those are some of my favorites out of the Japanese Beast Wars in general. You know, and the fact that we're getting a Magmatron as as a commander class in the future gives me hope that we'll actually see some of these characters again. Maybe some of them will get a better transformation. Maybe some of them will get, a better dead mode. I don't know. Whatever the case may be, the door is opening, and it's a fascinating door to look in on. So I hope you've enjoyed this look back at Beast Wars Neo, and just my general thoughts and opinions of it. You're free to disagree. That's what the comment section below is for. But regardless, thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.
I'm like, I think you guys got this. I will back away, and I will see you all later.
You've got this handled.
Alafi's like, really? You're not gonna help me? Like, it's fine now.
It's like these disgusting creatures breathing down my neck, and you're all just like, I believe in you. You got this.
All right, you seem to have this. 5 minutes.